In March, Russian President Vladimir Putin hosted a visit for Chinese President Xi Jinping. And at the end of his three-day visit, Mr. Xi referred to Mr. Putin as his dear friend. Last month, China also struck a trade deal with Brazil to trade with each other using their respective currencies, rather than using the US dollar, the standard currency for international trade for decades. China also negotiated an energy deal with Saudi Arabia, a key US ally, and brokered a de-escalation of tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Politically and economically, China is making headlines in ways that the United States once did. And amid the rise of China's influence, what is the impact on investing and the markets? Well, with us now is Mr. Brendan Caldwell, Director at Caldwell Securities Limited. Mr. Caldwell, welcome to Forum Daily.
Nathaniel, always great to chat with you.
So, Brendan, let's take a look here. What are the political implications for the world economy with a more assertive China in global affairs?
Well, I think we still in the West largely control our own destiny. And however, seeing China take this new role of going beyond just being isolationist and now looking far more globally in terms of trade, in terms of politics, but the two are much more intertwined in the Chinese political philosophy than perhaps it has even been in the West. We have in the West pursued democracy for democracy's sake in many cases. China is, well, less fussed perhaps about what kind of government a country has, as long as there's good business to be done. So I think in the West, if we want to continue to expand democracy, which was on the rise from the 80s through the 2000s, if we want to see democracy and freedom continue to expand, I think we have to do a better job of controlling the ball.
And speaking of controlling the ball, what will these trade deals and negotiations, alliances mean for the United States and Canada as well?
Well, throughout my entire working career, indeed throughout my entire lifetime, the world has become more global, and globalization has either a good word or a cuss word, depending on which side of the argument you're on. But it is undeniable that those countries that have participated in globalization have benefited tremendously, albeit unequally, but tremendously. And billions of people that were in poverty 50 years ago are now a lot wealthier. We are seeing a much greater turning in on ourselves. And what I've seen the United States do is really think about the US first, as opposed to thinking about the world in terms of trading blocks and alliances, economic and political, the way that China is doing at present. And I think for the West to continue to prosper, I think we, different than what they might have said in The Godfather, I think we need to keep our friends very close.
And speaking of that close relationship, we know Canada and the U.S. have had a close relationship. We've seen NAFTA, we've seen USMCA in previous deals before. But what can Canada do to keep from being marginalized or pushed to the side as the U.S. becomes both more inward focused and focused with perhaps global power contentions with China?
Well, I think there are some things that are within our power, some things that would be very nice to have. One of the things that would be a nice to have that I think China is its Achilles heel, and I think the Achilles heel of Russia and a lot of these emerging powers are that they're having fewer children. Having fewer children is not a long-term recipe for success. And while immigration is good and a wonderful complement to the growth of one's population, it is not entirely a substitute for having babies. So Canada can simply continue to grow naturally and organically. That is a helpful thing. That we take immigrants has been wonderfully helpful, but I think we also have to know ourselves and what we're good at. And one of the things we're really good at, probably better than the rest of the world, is resources, energy, mining, minerals, to make these more freely available to the world, to have less constrictions, to have less fighting amongst the provinces, less fighting between indigenous people and the resource companies. Because if we do not hang together, to borrow from one of the fathers of the American Revolution, if we do not hang together, we shall all surely hang separately. So we're a country of, well, now nearly 40 million people in a world of 8 billion people. I think we have to be coherent in our strategy and in our approach when looking at the rest of the world and indeed trading and doing business with them.
Canada, the U.S., and the world, cogent. All right. Well, Brendan, thanks so much for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Thank you, Nathaniel, very much.